Good morning from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones with your morning update on what became again Hurricane Beryl just prior to making landfall. Now, Hurricane Beryl did move ashore this morning around 4 a.m. as a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds right around 80 miles per hour at landfall. Of course, now that it's moving inland, it is beginning to weaken. In fact, right before I came on the air here, I meant to check. I was waiting for the latest update from the National Hurricane Center to come out to see if we had an updated wind speed. Let me see if that's actually here. It is. Yeah. So winds are now down to 75 miles per hour. They were as high as 80 as of landfall, but now we are beginning what should be a fairly rapid weakening trend now that Beryl is inland and will be gradually moving further inland throughout the day. Of course, the big issue is what is the impacts expected across our region, across Southeast Texas and Southwest Louisiana. We're going to talk about all of that here in the next little while. So as always, this is a live interactive briefing. If you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section, and then we'll answer them just as soon as we get through the briefing. This briefing is going to focus more on our impact, since we're not talking about the strength and what Beryl is going to do so much anymore now that it's actually already inland. So just kind of bear that in mind. I do have an updated individual parish by parish and county by county breakdown. We're going to go through that as well here just as soon as we wrap up the main part of our briefing here. Just checking to make sure that everything appears to be working correctly, because I don't want to go jumping into this and then find out you can't hear me or anything. All right, looks like everything's working. So let's go ahead, and everything's working except for my clicker. That's about right. Come on, clicker. There we go. So here is the visible satellite, or the first images of the day, now that the sun's finally coming up, of Hurricane Beryl, now moving inland, center of circulation right about there. And it is going to be moving, making more of a northeasterly turn and moving across East Texas as we go through the day today, eventually moving into Arkansas by tomorrow. Looking at really significant flooding. I wanted to show you the radar here. I was having some issue getting my radar up when we were coming in here this morning for the broadcast. So I don't have that with me, but we're looking at some serious flooding developing across parts of the Houston metro area and points further south. Some of those rain bands are going to be moving into parts of eastern Texas. Later on today, we are already seeing pretty steady rainfall across parts of Jefferson and Hardin counties this morning. More intermittent rainfall across southwest Louisiana, although we have seen some periods of heavy rainfall across parts of Cameron, Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, those areas here this morning. One of the biggest issues we're going to be dealing with over the next 24 hours or so is going to be the potential for flash flooding. So we're going to talk about that here. We do have the flash flood watch currently in effect for all of our southeast Texas counties. Currently, this does not include southwest Louisiana, although we are looking at a low-end flash flood risk even into parts of western Louisiana. Generally speaking, looking at 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, but local amounts of up to 8 inches not out of the realm of possibility. And we've talked about the last couple of days, the possibility of a few of these rain bands, or one of these rain bands as the storm moves off to the northeast, one of these back edge rain bands just sitting over a fairly narrow area. If that were to happen, which we think it probably will somewhere, we could be looking at up to a foot of rain in a few locations. But unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly where that's going to be, because we don't know exactly where that's going to set up until about the time it actually starts to set up. That's just one thing that forecasting has not gotten very good. We know it's going to happen somewhere. We just don't know exactly where it's going to wind up being. Still, we're looking at a flash flood threat, though, across pretty much the entire region. But specifically, most likely, across parts of southeast Texas. We're also still looking at coastal flood hazards. We do have a storm surge warning in effect for coastal parts of Jefferson County, looking at up to 5 feet of storm surge across those areas. For coastal parts of Cameron Parish, looking at anywhere between 2 to 3 feet of surge expected. And then further east across and around Vermilion Bay, so Vermilion, Iberia, St. Mary parishes, looking at a coastal flood advisory for up to 1.5 feet above normal tides. I'll show you those graphics here, those charts, in just a second to talk about the exact timing. In fact, those high tides should be occurring about now or within the next couple of hours or so. So the most significant coastal flooding that we're going to see with this event is going to be occurring this morning. We do still have a tropical storm warning in effect for Jefferson County, Hardin County, and Tyler County in southeast Texas. I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen for you so you can get a little bit better look at it here, so you're not looking over my shoulder the whole time here. condition or those tropical storm warnings are for tropical storm force winds that are expected. In fact, we've already received some tropical storm force wind gusts across parts of Jefferson County, but we are looking at sustained tropical storm force wind gusts or sustained tropical storm force winds with higher wind gusts across those three counties, and then gusts to tropical storm force winds across, say, Jasper, Newton, and Orange counties and parts of western Louisiana. We had some gusts as early as yesterday afternoon, some gusts to tropical storm force here in the Lake Charles area. So not out of the realm of possibility to see some tropical storm force wind gusts even outside of the tropical storm warned areas. We do still have a tornado watch in effect right now. This is only for Jefferson and Hardin counties. This is until 10 a.m. this morning. It wouldn't surprise me at all, though, if this winds up being expanded further to the east and extended through a large part of the day. Anytime we're talking about these bands of rain moving through, we do have a risk of tornadoes. We actually did receive a video of a tornado yesterday evening around 7 p.m. That touched down actually was within the city of Beaumont itself. It was very brief. It was very weak, but it was there, and we are going to be looking at the potential for those tornadoes as we go through the day today and possibly even into the night tonight. This is the latest forecast track from Hurricane Beryl. Ignore the maximum sustained winds there. I didn't get the latest update for the winds, but they are currently down to 75 miles an hour, as we talked about on top of the broadcast here. The overall forecast track, though, remains the same. We're going to be looking at kind of a northward shift or movement to Beryl. You can see the movement there currently due north at 12 miles an hour, and then eventually a northeasterly trend as it gets up across parts of eastern Texas, eventually moving into parts of Arkansas by tomorrow afternoon. As it does so, as it moves kind of across East Texas, we're going to be looking at quite a bit of rainfall. Like I said, what's then going to be a tropical storm and eventually a depression or a remnant low. And all of that rainfall is going to be moving across parts of East Texas and western Louisiana over the next 24 to 36 hours or so. Like I said, Beryl is expected to rapidly weaken. We're going to look at it probably dropping down to a tropical storm with the next advisory by 10 a.m. And then potentially being a depression by late tonight or early tomorrow morning, with those remnants then moving off across the central U.S. as we go through the middle and latter parts of this week. The biggest threat is going to be the potential for excessive rainfall leading to flash flooding. You can see southeast Texas. That's where the highest risk area is going to be. The areas highlighted in red there are looking at a 40% chance of seeing flash flooding across that anywhere within that area. For western Louisiana, you're in a slight risk. That's a 15% chance of seeing flash flooding, and then a marginal risk for a large part of the Acadiana region, looking at about a 5% chance of flash flooding. That's for the Lafayette, New Iberia area up towards Alexandria. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as the flash flood threat today. And then as we head into tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a continued flash flood threat. The higher risk, though, is going to shift a little bit further to the east. This is going to be across south central Louisiana. So the Lafayette, New Iberia area, Vermilion Parish, looking at that slight risk, that 15% chance of seeing flash flooding as we head into Tuesday. And a marginal risk, a 5% chance extending all the way back to as far west as Lake Charles, and as far north as right around the Opelousas area, and then that also covers southeast Louisiana as well. Again, we're expecting probably one of those lingering rain bands to set up somewhere across either southwest, south central, maybe even southeast Louisiana. It's just a matter of exactly where that's going to be. And again, that's very difficult to predict more than maybe an hour or so in advance. We got to wait for that to actually set up before we see exactly what that winds up being. Here are the latest forecast rainfall totals across the region. Generally speaking, we're looking at anywhere between 1 to 4 inches of rain, although we could see some local amounts of up to 8 inches, especially across parts of southeast Texas, where you're going to be looking at a much longer duration period of rainfall and some of those heavier rain bands moving across that region. We do still have that storm surge threat that we talked about at the top of the broadcast. We're looking at potentially up to 5 feet of storm surge across coastal parts of Jefferson County. That's actually ongoing right now. That's where the highest surge values are essentially occurring now and over the next couple of hours here this morning. That's going to be a combination of the high tide as well as the strongest winds. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And then still looking at a surge risk across parts of coastal Cameron Parish, coastal Vermilion Parish, coastal Iberia Parish, coastal St. Mary Parish, as well. So pretty much looking at coastal flooding anywhere across southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana as we go through the morning. This is the look at the Calcasieu Parish tide gauge. Again, the forecast, the vertical line there that you see on Monday, that is 7 a.m. So that's roughly about right now. So we're right at high tide, and we're looking also at the most significant surge associated with Beryl as it moves ashore here. So this is going to be essentially the most significant coastal flooding that we're seeing. If you're not seeing coastal flooding yet at this point, you're probably not going to see it. So we're looking at roughly about 2.5 feet above normal high tide right now at Calcasieu Pass. We should be looking at the coastal or the surge eventually should be going down as we go through the afternoon as we head towards a low tide, even though we'll still be looking at those southwesterly winds through the day. The fact that the tide's going to be going out should drop the coastal flooding from where it is right now. Looking at Texas Point, you're looking at a higher surge value, a little over 3 feet, 3.5 feet right now being forecast or expected. And that's like I said, about 3 feet above where we'd normally expect to be. And that is also occurring right now. Should be gradually dropping through the day as the tide winds up going out. Same thing for Lama in and around the Vermilion Bay area. We're looking anywhere between about 1 foot to 1.5 feet above normal. The high tide is happening roughly right now. And then we're going to be looking at a low tide. We may be looking at additional high tides above normal, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet above normal again on Tuesday. And we'll still be about 1 foot above normal during the high tide on Wednesday as well in and around the Vermilion Bay area. So this may be a more than one-time occurrence for those of you around Vermilion Bay. The saving grace, though, is you're not looking at nearly as high of a surge as areas and points further to the west. We are still looking at the tropical wind threat. This is kind of showing, broadly speaking, where the tropical storm warning is and where the risk for tropical storm force winds exist. You can see all of Jefferson, Hardin, and Tyler counties, and the possibility of some tropical storm force wind gusts getting into parts of Jasper and Newton counties as well. We do still have the overall risk of tornadoes. Again, we talked about earlier with the tornado watch. This is going to be for the entire day, essentially, for southeast Texas and western Louisiana. You're in that slight risk for severe weather. Looking specifically at the tornado risk, you can see the large portion of that same area, southeast Texas and western Louisiana, in a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado. Areas further to the east across Acadiana looking at generally a 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado as we go through the day today. It's actually a little bit higher just north of the Jasper-Newton County line there, 10 to 15% chance up across northwestern Louisiana and northeast Texas. So they actually have a little bit higher risk up that way. But still looking at a non-zero chance as we go through the day today. We already had one that we had a video of last night. And we are expecting probably a few more of those quick spin-up tornadoes as we go through the day. The important thing to keep in mind about tropical tornadoes is they happen usually very quickly. They only last a couple of minutes, and they're usually relatively weak for tornadoes. But the downside of that is there's often very little warning with them as well. If we're able to see them on radar, which oftentimes we can't, but if we can, usually it's just for a minute or two. We'll get a warning out, but there's not going to be a whole lot of warning in advance of a potential tropical tornado. Taking a quick look at the extended forecast here going out through the just about the end of the work week here. You can see very high rain chances, obviously, today and tomorrow. Dropping those rain chances down a little bit Wednesday and Thursday, but still looking at fairly high rain chances, mainly across south central Louisiana. I think southeast Texas will have a chance to dry out Wednesday and Thursday. Same thing across central Louisiana. We'll just see a little bit more activity across south central Louisiana Wednesday and Thursday. But at least the next couple of days, we are going to be looking at pretty widespread rainfall across the region with what is currently Hurricane Beryl, and it'll eventually be the remnants of Hurricane Beryl thereafter. So this does plan to, I'm planning on this to be our last briefing with regards to Beryl now that it's moving inland. We are still going to be looking at impacts through the day today, but I'm actually about to head out. I've been up all night working the event and creating graphics and briefing emergency partners and a whole bunch of other mess. So I'm about to head out and get some rest here, but we will continue to provide social media updates through the day. Other forecasters here will provide those updates, but this is going to be our last live briefing with regards to Hurricane Beryl. So if you do have any pending burning questions, get them out now, because this is going to be your last opportunity to do it. I am going to run through the parish by parish and county by county breakdowns real quick. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I've already posted these to our Facebook page as well as our Twitter page, so you can check those out at your leisure in more detail. So we're just going to run through them quickly for those of you who are on here at the moment. They haven't changed a whole lot from last night, so if you saw the ones last night, they're going to be very, very similar, if not identical, in quite a few locations. And then once we run through that, we will answer any questions. Not any questions, but any appropriate questions. I don't want to leave myself open to inappropriate questions. We can't get too inappropriate around here. But we'll answer your questions here just as soon as we wrap up the parish by parish and county by county breakdown. Let me get me out of the way a little bit here so you can actually see what we're talking about here. We're going to start in Jefferson County, where we're looking at the most significant impacts. Again, 30 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds expected with gusts up to 55 miles per hour possible. All of these impacts are essentially for today and mainly today, but possibly lingering in tonight for the rainfall. But the wind threat is going to be during the day today. Storm surge 2 to 4 feet, possibly up to 5 feet. The National Hurricane Center, in its most recent update, officially upped that to about 5 feet. Rainfall totals 4 to 8 inches with up to 12 inches possible. We are looking at a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado. And we are expecting at least a few power outages possible with those very strong, relatively strong winds up to tropical storm force with gusts to 55 miles per hour. That's usually enough to knock down some tree branches onto some power lines to get at least some sporadic power outages. Go. What did I do? We're going to get it. Orange County, 25 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 45. Storm surge is going to be generally between 1 and 2 feet. 4 to 8 inches of rainfall with up to 12 inches possible. You have that 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could also see a few power outages across Orange County. For Hardin County, 30 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 55. No storm surge. 4 to 8 inches of rainfall with up to 12 inches possible. You are in that 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could see some sporadic power outages in Hardin County with those tropical storm force winds as well. For Tyler County, 30 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 55, 4 to 8 inches of rainfall with up to 12 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could also see a few power outages across parts of Tyler County. For Jasper County, 25 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 45, 4 to 8 inches of rainfall with up to 12 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could also see a few power outages across Jasper County. For Newton County, same thing, 25 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds, gusting to 45 with no storm surge. Rainfall totals of 4 to 8 inches with up to 12 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could see a few power outages across Newton County as well. For Cameron Parish, 25 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 45, 1 to 2 feet of storm surge right along the coastline that could flood and possibly is flooding right now. Highways 82 and 27 near Holly Beach, Deep Bayou Road, as well as Rutherford Beach Road. 2 to 4 inches of rainfall expected with up to 8 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing an isolated tornado, and we can't rule out a few possible power outages across Cameron Parish as well. For Calcasieu Parish, 20 to 25 mile per hour winds gusting to 35, no storm surge to speak of, 2 to 4 inches of rainfall with up to 8 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we could possibly see a couple of power outages across Calcasieu. I don't expect a lot, but I'm not completely ruling out maybe a few sporadic power outages. For Beauregard, 20 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 35, no storm surge. Rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches with up to 8 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and also maybe a couple of power outages across Beauregard can't be ruled out as well. For Vernon, 20 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 35, 1 to 2 inches of rain with up to 4 inches possible, a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and maybe a couple of power outages across Vernon. For Jeff Davis, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds gusting to 30, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall with up to 4 inches possible. You're also in that 5 to 10% risk of seeing a tornado. Not expecting any power outages across Jeff Davis. For Allen Parish, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds gusting to 30, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall with up to 4 inches possible. You're also in that 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and we're not expecting power outages across Allen. For Rapides, 15 to 25 mile per hour winds gusting to 30, a half inch to 1 inch of rain, possibly up to 2 inches. I don't think you're going to see as much rain across Rapides Parish. You are in that 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado, and I don't think we're going to see a whole lot in the way of power outages, though. Vermilion Parish, 20 to 25 mile per hour winds gusting to 35, 1 to 2 feet of surge along the coastline. That's again occurring as we speak and will continue for the next couple of hours before going out again. Rainfall 2 to 4 inches with up to 8 inches possible. You're in a marginal risk, so a lower risk, 2 to 4% of seeing a possible tornado. And can't rule out maybe a couple of power outages across Vermilion, but not expecting a whole lot out of that. For Acadia, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds gusting to 20, no storm surge, 2 to 4 inches of rainfall with up to 8 inches possible. You're also in that low end risk, 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado with no power outages expected across Acadia. For Evangeline, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds gusting to 20, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall with up to 4 inches possible. You're also in that marginal 2 to 4% risk of seeing a tornado, and we're not expecting power outages across Evangeline. For Avoyelles, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds gusting to 20, half inch up to 1 inch of rain expected, not a whole lot, up to 2 inches possible. Marginal risk, 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado, and we are not expecting power outages across Avoyelles. For St. Landry, 10 to 15 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 20, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall with up to 4 inches possible. You're also in that marginal 2 to 4% risk for seeing a tornado, but we're not expecting power outages across St. Landry. For Lafayette, 10 to 15 mile per hour sustained winds gusting to 20, 2 to 4 inches of rain with up to 8 inches possible. You're also in that marginal risk for a 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado, and no power outages are expected across Lafayette. For Iberia Parish, 15 to 20 mile per hour winds gusting to 25, 1 to 2 feet of coastal flooding, possible again ongoing right now and over the next couple of hours. Rainfall 2 to 4 inches with up to 8 inches possible. You're also in that marginal 2 to 4% risk for seeing a tornado, and we are not expecting power outages across Iberia. For St. Martin, 15 to 20 mile per hour winds gusting to 25, storm surge 1 to 2 feet, which is also occurring as we speak. Rainfall 2 to 4 inches with up to 8 inches possible. You're in that marginal risk, which is the 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado, and we are not expecting power outages across St. Martin. Finally, St. Mary, 15 to 20 mile per hour winds gusting to 25, 1 to 2 feet of storm surge along the coastline, which again is ongoing right now. 2 to 4 inches of rain with up to 8 inches possible. Marginal risk of tornadoes, that's a 2 to 4% risk, and we are not expecting power outages across St. Mary. So that's all the parishes and counties. Again, if you missed your parish or county while we were going through that, all of these graphics are posted on our Facebook and X pages. So you can view them there at your leisure, share them, and enjoy them as long as you like. If you do have any questions, we're now going to go through to our question segment here. So I'm just going to run through here and see if we do have any questions. If you had a question at the top of the broadcast, I may have missed it. I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning, so just throw it back in there again if you're still watching, and I'll be happy to answer it here. Let me take a look. Greg said he had some brief but strong wind gusts in Calcasieu a few minutes ago. What's going to happen is these strong wind gusts are going to be within the rain bands themselves. It's going to be breezy outside of them, but when you're actually seeing those rain bands roll through, or those individual showers or thunderstorms roll through, that's when you're going to see your strongest winds and gusts to tropical storm force. Let's see. Christina says, as much as I appreciate you, I do like when you say it's our last briefing. Yeah, I think it is time for a break. Let's see. Diana said, I heard the winds were over 90 miles per hour when it came in Brazoria. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we could have had some gusts that high. Now, the sustained winds were only 80 at landfall, and that's roughly about what we saw. We had some buoys right along the coast that recorded that. An observing station right along the coast also had winds recorded, I think, just right around 75 miles per hour in the eye wall. So the forecast maximum winds, or the winds that were in the Hurricane Center's advisory, were very, very close to what actually wound up being the case. Now, those are the sustained winds. We could always have higher gusts. So I'm not ruling out that 90 miles an hour very well could have occurred, but it occurred as a gust, not necessarily as a sustained wind. Elise asks, what time will the weather reach us in Allen Parish? You're going to be looking at more kind of sporadic rain bands. We've had some showers roll through there this morning. It's going to be kind of on and off through the day. It's not going to be something that it's going to start, it's going to go on, and then it's going to finish. It's going to be kind of on and off throughout the day. All right, not seeing a whole lot of questions here this morning. I guess everybody is happy and wonderful and fantastic. Well, that's awesome. That's how I love it. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up our briefing then. This will be the shortest briefing of the 3-day period that we've been doing this. We got a couple rolling in here. Let's see. Big Johnson says, what will impact the Lake Charles Moss Bluff area the most in the next 12 to 24 hours in regards to wind, rain, flooding, etc.? Also, you deserve 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep. That sounds like a great idea. I think that's a great plan. I may very well go do that. As far as what's going to be affecting us the most, the rain is going to be the biggest impact. Yeah, we're certainly going to have some breezy winds out there today, 20, 25 miles an hour. But the risk is going to be for that heavy rainfall and the potential for flash flooding. That's what we're most concerned about in the Lake Charles Moss Bluff area here as we go through the next 12 to 24 hours. Ike says, watching the radar, this storm seems to have less rain bands. Is that the case? Less rain bands compared to what, I guess, would be my question. No, I mean, this storm it's a pretty classic looking Category 1 hurricane. We were actually already seeing outer rain bands move through the area yesterday afternoon. So some of those have already kind of moved on well off to the north. So you have to account for those as well. We've been looking at the first impacts that we've had across our area were being felt by 3, 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So in that respect, we've been looking at those rain bands moving through for quite a while. Now they're not necessarily all quite as organized. It's not a full line followed by another full line. But yeah, we've been dealing with those rain bands for quite a while. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's fewer of them. Alias has been there. Any major power outages reported yet? Not that I'm aware of. I didn't actually go check the energy companies to see, but I haven't seen on any news or other methods. I haven't been made aware of any major power outages so far. Not in this area. Now over towards Houston and down towards Matagorda, where the storm actually made landfall, I'm sure there are much more significant power outages. Dana asked, any clue when the highest risk will be near Senlaw? You're probably going to be looking at the rain is going to be the highest risk, and you're going to be looking at that kind of moving into that area later this afternoon into this evening. Right now, it's confined to more kind of coastal areas, Jefferson County, Hardin County. As it moves further to the north, we're going to be looking at those bands beginning to get into parts of central Louisiana, and that's when your risk is going to come in for the potential for heavy rainfall and flash flooding. And if you're going to see a tornado risk, that's probably when it's going to be for central Louisiana. Janet says, no power in Pearland for hours and tree snapped in half. Well, there's your power outages. Monica asks, is the rain going to be pretty steady for Vernon Parish? I don't expect it's going to be constant. No, it's going to be kind of like we're talking about. When we're talking about these bands, they're going to be they're going to move in, they're going to move out. So you're going to be looking at periods of rain and then periods of no rain where it's just going to be breezy. So no, I don't expect it to necessarily be constant in Vernon Parish all day. Rima says, The song remains the same. I'm not sure what song you're talking about, but yes, I do deserve a break, and I do deserve a hurricane because this was a hurricane at landfall, and we all deserve hurricane. Francis asks, where will it be when storm be listed as storm and not hurricane? I think what you're asking is, when is the storm going to be downgraded to a tropical storm as opposed to a hurricane? I expect it to fall below hurricane strength probably by the 10 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center this morning. So within the next couple of hours, it should be downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm. As far as where will it be at that point, probably roughly about 50-ish miles inland off the coast. It's going to be right around the Houston area, the Houston metro area at that point. Rima says Houston has 1 million people with the latest power outage. Told you there was a lot of power outages in Houston. I didn't even need to go look at the energy charts and know it too. Yeah, that's definitely expected because they're looking at hurricane force winds or very strong tropical storm force winds at the least. And plus, they're dealing with a whole lot more. They've had flash flood warnings in effect for hours now already. So it's a very serious situation in the larger Houston metropolitan area. Blade's asking about Baton Rouge. We're not expecting a whole lot of impacts in the Baton Rouge area. There will be some outer rain bands that are going to roll through there. There is a low-end risk that we could see a tornado, not out of the realm of possibility, with one of those bands, but we're not expecting significant rainfall totals in Baton Rouge from this storm, nor are we expecting significant winds. You know, it's going to be a little breezy just because a hurricane by its nature is a low pressure area, and so we have a low pressure area somewhat nearby, so that's going to make it a little breezy, but I don't expect there to be any significant wind issues in the Baton Rouge area. Penny says hurricane sounds delicious. Hurricane is that's a holdover from several years ago when we were doing Facebook Live briefings. That may have been the year of Laura. We all deserved hurricane back then. Is the rain forecast the same as it was yesterday? Yeah, that hasn't changed a whole lot really at all. We're still looking at about the same areas and the same rainfall totals that we had yesterday. Monegas, would you recommend driving to Houston today? I'm going to say no, considering there's a hurricane going through there. No, I don't recommend driving to Houston today. Not even because of the wind necessarily, but because of the copious amounts of flash flooding that's going on. You're probably not going to get very far into Houston. Dana says, I saw Reed Timmer throwing the term tornado outbreak around pretty freely. Allow me to take a deep breath and sigh. No, it's not a tornado outbreak. We can see several tornadoes in, in a landfalling tropical system. Does that constitute an outbreak? Sure, call it an outbreak if you want to. I wouldn't call it an outbreak necessarily. But yes, you can see several tornadoes ongoing within a landfalling tropical system. And the Houston Weather Service office has issued several tornado warnings already this morning. Whether they actually touched down, I'm not aware of any videos or pictures that they had. Most of them were very early in the morning. It was dark. There'd be no way to know whether it actually happened or not. So, no, I personally would not call it an outbreak. If Reed Timmer wants to call it an outbreak, then yay for him. He's got to get people to watch his show. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here, not seeing too many more questions. So if you do have a question that I missed for some reason, feel free to shoot us a direct message on Facebook. I'll be happy to answer your question that way. I'll also throw my email up on the screen there for you once again. It's my name with a dot in the middle, so donald.jones@noaa.gov. shoot me an email if you have a question. I'll be happy to answer it that way, at least for the next few minutes till I go home. You can also give us a call. We do have forecasters here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've got a lot of them here today, keeping an eye on this storm. Area code 337-477-5285. And if you'd like to speak to a forecaster directly, you can also message us on X/Twitter, and we'll be happy to answer your questions that way. So lots of ways to get in touch with us if you do still have any questions or any questions that I missed. Again, this is going to be our last briefing as it relates to Hurricane Beryl. We will continue to provide updates via social media. They just won't be in the live briefing format. The risk is going to continue through the day today and possibly into the day tomorrow, especially when it comes to the potential for flash flooding. So definitely stay aware of the weather situation as we go through the day and into tomorrow. Just because Beryl has made landfall does not mean that the impacts and the threats are completely over, especially for our area. It may seem like, because we've got these bands that are going in and out, on and off, that it's nothing to worry about, but you definitely want to stay weather aware for the next, say, at least 24 hours or so as the remnants of Beryl continue to move across the area. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day, at least as wonderful as you can be with a hurricane making landfall. Stay safe. Don't drive through floodwaters, which there very well may be some. And we'll talk to you again, hopefully, maybe Christmas. Christmas would be great if that was the next time we had to meet up, because I don't want to do this again, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to happen at some point. But let's plan to get together around Christmas time. We'll exchange presents. I'll wear a ho-ho hat. It'll be a great time. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you again soon.